Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders in our state. Becki, Gray, and Howard Lee, the North Carolina Sheriff's Association released a report this past week proposing statewide law enforcement reforms. And one of the recommendations was that every North Carolina high school junior should watch a video or videos explaining how to interact with law enforcement. Now, some community activists opposed that idea because they say it could more easily violate somebody's rights. What do you think about the proposal? Should these videos be produced by law enforcement officials or some bipartisan group? Becki?
I think it's a good idea. I think anytime that we can introduce our high school students, well, any students, and to life skills, I think that's a good idea. Several years ago, the General Assembly put in place a financial literacy requirement for high school students. And I think those kind of things are always good. So I would absolutely support this idea. As far as who would produce the videos, I would think that it would make sense for the law enforcement community to do it. And not only videos, but to come in and interact with the students. In my view, this thing would have two roles. One would just be instructional, but the other would be to begin build relationship of trust between young people and the law enforcement. And I think that you do that acting directly with each other rather than through a third party.
Howard, I think this is largely an area of trust, and I think that part of it is we certainly want to trust our law enforcement officials in North Carolina. I think the question is, will there be editorial opinions inserted in this? What do you think of this whole idea?
I think the idea itself is good. I think the approach is what I think needs to be considered more seriously. I agree with Becki that just law enforcement itself making the pitch to the kids may not have the same effect as if there were kids involved in helping to make the point. For example, if the video is produced with a law enforcement officer answering questions from youngsters and the idea being to get the message across, it might have a different effect. I don't think it violates anybody's rights, but I think it's trying to make a broader impact on kids beyond what the parents and even some local institutions can do to help them understand how to behave with law enforcement. So I like the idea, but I question the approach and whether or not the law enforcement specifically should be the one producing it.
Well, and not only that, Becki, I think it'd probably be a good idea for all of us. I mean, how do you know what to do when you get stopped on the highway, for instance? Nobody ever told me that. I think I've had to learn it, unfortunately, from experience. But this could be something we all could benefit from, couldn't it?
Absolutely. And, as we have seen more people participating in some of these marches and protests and, public activities, exercising their First Amendment rights, I think that, there are a lot of populations who could use, kind of a review on how to interact with law enforcement and also, just what some of the rules and regulations are to keep everyone safe during those kind of interactions.
And I think in some instances, getting on the other side of this, there are a lot of instances where these people who are protesting and exercising their rights need to understand the limitations and the legalities of what those law enforcement officials are having to deal with themselves. And I think that could be very beneficial. Don't you think so, Howard?
And I think equally as important is that there be videos produced teaching law enforcement how to behave, because there are law enforcement people who have not had proper training, and they exacerbate a problem sometimes by their own attitude and the way they respond to people. And they need to understand how to ratchet down emotions when they're, so it's a two-way street and not just a one-way street.
Excellent point to be made. And I thank you for them. And I thank you for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.